For decades, the galaxy had enjoyed peace and uneasy peace, but peace nonetheless. The aliens, powerful and technologically advanced, ruled vast sections of the stars. Humanity had been pushed to the edges of space, forgotten by most. They were nothing more than whispers in the records of the galaxy's mighty empires. But that was about to change. It began with a strange signal. A small, almost insignificant anomaly was detected by a deep space monitoring station. At first, it seemed harmless, just a tiny blip on the radar. But within hours, the signal grew stronger. Something was out there. Something alive. The Council of the Galactic Federation, a coalition of the universe's strongest species, was quick to react. They had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, but nothing had prepared them for what was coming. This was not some rogue ship or random disturbance, it was a warship. A warship like no other. Its trajectory was slow, deliberate. It didn't communicate. It simply moved. At first, the alien leaders scoffed. A human warship? That's impossible, said Commander Zorak, the leader of the Varan species, known for their sharp minds and cruel military tactics. Humans, in their opinion, were a long-forgotten race, incapable of building anything capable of challenging the galaxy's might. The Federation dismissed the warship as a fluke, but still, the silence from the vessel was unnerving. It was too quiet. Days passed, and then weeks. The warship, appearing almost ghostly in the darkness of space, continued its course toward the heart of the Federation's controlled space. The higher-ups gathered again, debating. Some said it was nothing, just an outdated human relic, but others weren't so sure. The silent ship was growing nearer, and the fear was real. What if it wasn't human at all? What if this was just a trap, set by some other force? On the eve of their final decision, as they prepared to send a fleet of scouts to investigate, the warship did something unexpected. It activated. For the first time since its appearance, the ship's systems came online. The Federation watched in stunned silence as the ship moved into the center of their communications range, and then nothing. No message. No demand. No warning. Just the eerie silence. Then, without warning, the warship fired a single shot. The energy beam was unlike anything the Federation had ever seen. It was not a simple laser or conventional projectile. It was something that bent the laws of physics itself. The beam struck a Federation communications relay station, and in an instant, the entire system was wiped out, obliterated in a single hit. No warning. No counterattack. Just the terrifying power of the unknown. Fear rippled through the galaxy. This was no human ship, it couldn't be. The energy source it harnessed was beyond anything the most advanced species could create. And yet, it was undeniably human. But where had this power come from? The Federation scrambled. The Varan fleet, along with a dozen other species, was dispatched immediately. Their orders were clear: destroy the warship before it could cause more damage. Yet as they approached, the silence remained. No movement from the warship. No sign of life. It was as if the ship was waiting for something or someone. Commander Zorak of the Varan, with his fleet now in position, felt a cold chill. "Prepare to fire," he ordered. His fleet's weapons powered up. They had the firepower to destroy the warship in an instant. But still, there was something in the air, an invisible force that told Zorak to hesitate. Why was the ship so quiet? At that moment, just as the first Varan ships fired their weapons, the warship responded. The beams of energy fired back, not in retaliation, but with precision. One by one, the Varan ships were hit, their shields failing before they could even react. Entire ships disintegrated in an instant, their remains floating in space like debris. It was unlike any battle the Federation had ever seen. The warship didn't need to fight it, simply was the fight. And then, after a brief moment of chaos, the warship went silent again. It wasn't attacking, but it wasn't leaving either. The Federation's forces were left in disarray, scrambling to regroup. But the warship did not pursue. It remained still, watching, waiting. Hours passed. The warship's crew, if there was even a crew aboard, did not speak. The Federation's fleet was left in a state of disbelief. The loss of their ships was catastrophic, and yet the warship seemed unmoved by it all. It was as if it had achieved its goal and had no further purpose, at least for now. A group of Federation scientists, eager to learn the truth, devised a plan. They would send a probe to examine the warship closely, to learn its origins, and, hopefully, find a weakness. The probe was launched under the cover of darkness, and as it neared the warship's hull, it sent back data. But what it revealed sent shockwaves through the Federation's leadership. The warship was not a relic of an old war, nor was it a random piece of technology. It was an active, living thing. The warship itself seemed to be organic in nature, fused with advanced human technology. It was something else, something beyond comprehension. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the warship began to retreat, slowly moving away from the Federation's territory. The silence that followed was deafening. Had the ship achieved what it came for? Or was this just the beginning? As the warship drifted further into the void, a final message was transmitted to the Federation's central hub, a simple, chilling message. The silent warship has awakened. The galaxy will never be the same. The Federation, once the undisputed rulers of the galaxy, now stood on the brink of a new age, one in which humanity had not only returned, but had awakened something far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. The silent warship had only begun its mission, and the galaxy was about to face the consequences. The question was no longer who would win the war. The question now was, what was humanity truly capable of? The galaxy had lived in peace for centuries, but it wasn't a peaceful peace. It was a fragile peace, maintained by an unspoken understanding that the strongest species ruled the stars. The alien empires controlled entire sectors, and humanity, once a powerful force in its own right, had been forgotten. They were lost in the pages of history, their once great fleets reduced to whispers and rumors. But now, something had stirred in the darkness of deep space. Something was waking UP.T first. It was nothing more than a flicker, a signal that barely reached the most advanced sensors of the galaxy's largest empires. The Federation, a coalition of the strongest species in the universe, dismissed it as a glitch. The transmission was faint, barely enough to be considered a real signal. But as time passed, that faint signal began to grow. It wasn't just an error or malfunction, it was intentional. Something was out there. Something that hadn't been heard from in centuries. The Council of the Federation gathered in secret, concerned over the growing disturbance. For weeks, the signal had been steadily increasing in strength, coming from a distant, uncharted corner of the galaxy. The Federation's top scientists and military strategists were baffled. This wasn't a random signal. This was a message. But who was sending it? And more importantly, why? As the signal continued, strange anomalies began appearing across Federation space. Ships reported losing contact with Central Command. Stations went dark. And the worst part? These disruptions seemed to follow the path of the signal, slowly creeping closer to the heart of Federation territory. Commander Exorin of the Zorathian Empire, one of the Federation's most seasoned military leaders, was the first to speak up. "We cannot ignore this any longer," he said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "The source of this signal must be investigated. We need to know who or what is behind it." A fleet was quickly assembled, and Commander Exorin was given command. The mission was simple: find the source of the signal and eliminate any threat before it could reach Federation space. But the closer they got to the source, the more uneasy the crew became. The area around the signal was dead, no stars, no planets, just an empty stretch of space that seemed to drain all light from the surrounding stars. And in the midst of this darkness, the signal only grew louder. Days turned into weeks as the fleet ventured further into the unknown. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional hum of the ship's engines and the cold whisper of the signal. It was almost as if the darkness itself was alive, watching them, waiting for something. The deeper they went, the more they felt it, an unease creeping into their minds, a feeling that something ancient, something powerful, was just beyond the horizon. Then it happened. The fleet's lead ship, the Sovereign, came across a massive object floating in the void. At first, it seemed like a ship, a gigantic, hulking warship, but there was something wrong. The ship didn't match any known designs. It was like nothing they had ever seen. It was massive, more than 10 times the size of any standard warship, and yet it seemed to be made from an organic material, as if it were alive. The surface of the ship pulsed with an eerie light. Commander Xarin ordered the fleet to stop. The entire fleet was drawn to the ship, unable to look away. The signal was coming from here. But why was it silent? Why had it waited so long to reveal itself? Something didn't feel right. ASE the fleet moved closer. A transmission came through a single message that sent shivers down the spines of every officer on board. The awakening of humanity has begun. The message was chilling in its simplicity. Humanity? They hadn't heard from them in centuries. What did this mean? Suddenly, the warship's lights flickered, and it began to move. Slowly at first, but then faster, as if it were alive, waking up after a long slumber. The Federation fleet remained frozen in shock. There was no sound, no engine hum, just the silent movement of the massive warship gliding through space. It was as if the ship was guided by some invisible force, some purpose they couldn't comprehend. Then, without warning, the warship fired. The energy beam that shot from the ship's hull was unlike anything the Federation had ever seen. It wasn't just a weapon, it was pure destruction, ripping through space itself. The beam cut through the fleet's shields like paper, tearing apart their most advanced ships in a matter of seconds. Ships were ripped apart in flashes of light, their remains floating aimlessly in the vacuum of space. The Sovereign, the fleet's most powerful ship, was the first to fall, disintegrated in an instant by the devastating power of the warship's weapon. The remaining ships scattered in panic, trying to retreat, but the warship didn't pursue. It simply hovered in place, watching. It was as if it had no need to chase them. It had made its point, and now it was waiting for something. For them. The message that followed was even more unsettling. Humanity is not what you remember. The galaxy will never be the same again. The Federation's forces, now in full retreat, couldn't comprehend what had just happened. How had humanity managed to create something so powerful? The ship they had encountered wasn't just a warship. It was a symbol, a sign that humanity was no longer the weak, scattered species they had once been. As the warship drifted away, leaving behind the shattered remains of the fleet, Commander Xarin's mind raced. The Federation was no longer the most powerful force in the galaxy. Humanity had returned not just as survivors, but as something far greater than anyone had anticipated. The galaxy had underestimated them for far too long. What was this new humanity capable of? What had they become in all these years of silence? And what were they planning? The Federation was not ready for the storm that was coming. But the worst part? They didn't even know what side humanity was on. Were they friends, enemies, or something far more dangerous? The awakening of humanity had begun. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy had long been ruled by powerful alien empires, their ships and technology far beyond anything humanity could even dream of. For centuries, humans had been pushed to the fringes of space, forgotten and overlooked by the great forces that controlled the stars. No one believed humanity could ever rise again until one fateful day, when everything changed. It began with a strange, unexplainable event. Out in the deep, uncharted regions of space, a lone human warship appeared. At first, it seemed like a mistake, perhaps an outdated relic from a forgotten war, drifting in the dark void. But the moment the ship powered up, everything changed. The sensors aboard nearby alien ships detected it an unknown vessel, and more alarmingly, a ship that seemed to be alive, pulsing with energy that no one could identify. Its power was beyond the comprehension of the Federation, the Galactic Council of the most advanced species. News of the human warship spread like wildfire, but the first reaction was one of disbelief. The galaxy's most powerful species scoffed at the idea. Humans? They can't even keep up with basic technology. This must be a mistake, said the Supreme Commander of the Koran Empire, the most ruthless and technologically advanced race in the galaxy. They had wiped out entire civilizations, and a single human ship didn't seem worth considering. But when the warship's energy signature pulsed again, this time with an intensity that sent shockwaves through the surrounding sectors, they knew they were wrong. The humans had something new, something they hadn't seen before. The Federation's council met immediately. Their intelligence reports were scattered, filled with confusion and fear. There was no record of this warship in any human database. No one knew where it came from or what it was capable of. But the one thing they did know was this: it wasn't just an ordinary ship, it was a weapon. The first ships to approach the warship were met with no resistance. It didn't seem to move, didn't make a sound. It was simply there, floating silently in space. And yet, every ship that came too close was mysteriously disabled. No explosions, no obvious damage. One by one, alien vessels began to malfunction, their systems crashing as though they had come into contact with something that drained their power. The warship didn't need to fire a shot. It was as if the very presence of the ship was enough to incapacitate anything that tried to challenge it. Commander Towel, the leader of the Federation's flagship, the Vanguard, ordered an entire fleet to approach. They would confront this mysterious human warship and figure out exactly what it was. But when the fleet arrived, they found nothing. The ship had vanished. There was no trace of it, no sign of it anywhere. The crew felt an eerie silence. Something was watching them. Something that was just beyond their reach, waiting. A few days later, the warship appeared again, this time in the heart of Federation territory. It moved slowly but steadily, and once again, it didn't fire a single shot. Instead, it simply floated there, as if daring anyone to come near. The Federation's military strategists couldn't understand it. Why hadn't the warship attacked? Why was it just sitting there, waiting? Then, out of nowhere, the ship opened fire. The attack was swift and devastating. The warship unleashed a wave of energy that seemed to warp space itself. It tore through the Federation fleet with ease, leaving entire ships in ruins. But what was even more shocking was the nature of the attack. The warship's weapons didn't just destroy ships, they seemed to disassemble them on a molecular level, leaving behind nothing but dust and debris. It wasn't a weapon that simply blew things up, it was a weapon that unmade them. The Federation's ships tried to fight back, but their weapons were useless. The warship's energy shields absorbed every shot, every strike, without even the slightest sign of damage. The Vanguard, the flagship of the Federation, was the last to remain, but it too was powerless against the warship. The crew's attempts to counterattack failed. The ship's systems shorted out, one by one, as if something was shutting them down from the inside. Commander Tell knew something had to change. This wasn't just a human ship, it was something far more dangerous. But what did they know about it? What did humanity have that could create a weapon like this? There were no answers. And time was running out. As the Federation ships fell one by one, something unexpected happened. The warship stopped. It didn't finish off the remaining fleet, didn't follow up with a second attack. It simply paused, as if waiting for the next move. It was as if it had proven a point, a warning that had been sent across the galaxy. Humanity was back, and they weren't just a forgotten species anymore. The warship's sudden silence created more fear than its weapons ever could. What was humanity planning? Was this just a warning, or was there something more? The Federation had no answers, only questions. And one undeniable truth: they were no longer the most powerful force in the galaxy. But the warship wasn't the only thing humanity had. Reports began to filter in from the farthest reaches of human space. Human colonies had begun receiving strange, encrypted messages, cryptic in nature, promising aid for the future. It wasn't just the warship that had returned, it was the beginning of something much larger. Human technology, once thought primitive and obsolete, had evolved. Humanity had been quiet for so long, biding its time, and now it was emerging with an edge no one had expected. The Federation scrambled to prepare for the inevitable war. But as they did, one message from the human warship reached their command centers: "We are not your enemies. We are your equal." That single line sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Humanity had never been on equal footing with the galactic empires before, but now, They were. They had the technology, the knowledge, and the weapons to match the most powerful species in the universe. The balance of power was shifting. The question was no longer whether the Federation could defeat humanity, it was whether they could survive. And the most terrifying thought of all, no one knew how far humanity's edge went. No one knew what other secrets they had hidden away, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. The warship had shown only a fraction of what humanity was capable of. What would happen when they were ready to show everything? The galaxy wasn't ready for humanity's return. And as the warship disappeared into the deep void once again, the Federation and its allies were left to wonder, was this just the beginning? Or had they already lost? The galaxy had always been a place of uncertainty. Alien empires rose and fell, and the balance of power shifted with each passing century. But through it all, one thing remained constant, the fear of the unknown. There were whispers of ancient weapons hidden in the farthest reaches of space, relics from wars long forgotten. But most dismissed them as myths, stories told to frighten children. That is, until the day the unknown weapon made itself known. It began quietly at first, a disturbance in a remote corner of the galaxy. Outposts and research stations near the fringes of known space reported strange occurrences. Signals were intercepted, but they didn't match any known patterns. A few ships went missing, and no one knew why. The Federation, the galaxy's largest coalition of species, dismissed it as a series of accidents, a few random glitches in the system. But when the transmissions continued, growing more frequent and intense, the Federation's council decided to act. They ordered an expedition to investigate the anomalies. And that's when everything changed. A fleet was assembled, led by Commander Zoran of the Valtori species, known for their sharp intellect and strategic genius. Zoran had been on countless missions before, but nothing had prepared him for what he would soon discover. His fleet, consisting of ships from various species, ventured deep into the uncharted regions of space, following the trail of mysterious energy readings. The further they went, the more unsettling the readings became. It was as if the very fabric of space itself was being twisted by something unseen. As they approached the source of the disturbances, the fleet came upon a sight no one could have anticipated. A massive spherical object, seemingly made of an unknown material, hovered in the void. It was silent, still, and yet it pulsed with an eerie, dim light. The object seemed to defy all known laws of physics. It didn't belong in the galaxy, yet it was there, its presence undeniable. The fleet hesitated, unsure of what to do next. Was it a weapon? A trap? Or something entirely different? Without warning, the object activated. The ship's sensors went haywire, their communication systems jamming. Then, a single, devastating blast of energy shot out from the object, striking the nearest Federation ship. The ship's shields failed instantly, and the vessel was torn apart, its remains scattering across space in a split second. The fleet was thrown into chaos. Zoran's command ship barely managed to avoid the blast, but the damage was done. The Federation had just witnessed the first strike of a weapon unlike anything they had ever seen. The remaining ships tried to regroup, but the object was unlike any known weapon. It wasn't just a gun or a laser, it was something far more sophisticated, something far more deadly. The energy it emitted didn't just destroy, it erased. The Federation's fleet attempted to counterattack, launching everything they had at the object, but nothing worked. Every missile, every beam of energy seemed to disappear the moment it got too close to the object. It was as if the weapon was alive, adapting to every strike, learning from each attempt to destroy it. Zoran ordered his fleet to fall back. But the object didn't allow them to retreat. A series of energy pulses emanated from the object, and suddenly, the fleet found itself surrounded. The object had created a barrier, an invisible wall that pushed the ships back toward its center. It was like being trapped in a cage, with no way out. The crew aboard each ship could feel the pressure building as the weapon's influence began to affect their vessels, causing systems to fail one by one. It was clear now that this wasn't a typical weapon. It was something ancient, something far beyond their understanding. Desperation set in. Zoran knew that the Federation could not withstand much more of this. If the object was not neutralized soon, the entire fleet would be destroyed. But how could they destroy something that seemed impervious to all their weapons? The object had not even attempted to communicate. It wasn't like the other weapons the Federation had faced, which at least tried to warn their enemies before attacking. This weapon didn't need to communicate. It simply destroyed. Then, in the midst of the chaos, Zoran received an encrypted message from an unknown source. The message was brief, cryptic. It is the Edge. The weapon that no one remembers. Zoran's heart sank. The Edge. The ancient weapon spoken of in hushed whispers, but dismissed as a myth. It was real. And it was here. The message continued. The Edge is not just a weapon. It is the end of all things. If you do not stop it, it will unravel the very fabric of the universe. Zoran's mind raced. He had heard the stories, but no one had believed them. The Edge was said to have been created by a civilization long extinct, a race whose power was so great that they could shape the universe itself. But that civilization had vanished, leaving only their weapon behind. A weapon that could unmake reality itself. Zoran knew that the object they faced was not just a threat to the Federation. If the Edge was allowed to function, it could destroy not just ships or planets, but the very laws that held the galaxy together. It could unravel the universe, turning everything into nothing, and there was no way to know how to stop it. The message ended with a final warning: the weapon is not controlled by force. It can only be stopped by understanding. Seek the truth before it is too late. Zoran was left with more questions than answers. Understanding? What did that even mean? How could they understand something that had been hidden for so long? The Federation had no knowledge of the Edge, no means of fighting it. The only thing they knew for sure was that they had to act quickly, before the weapon could unleash its full power. The fleet, now battered and nearly broken, tried one last desperate maneuver. They focused all their remaining firepower on the object, but it was clear it was a futile effort. The Edge absorbed every shot without effort, its energy building higher and higher with each passing second. As Zoran's ship fell into the weapon's grip, the truth became undeniable. The Edge was unstoppable. Its power was beyond anything the Federation could comprehend. And as the object pulsed once more, Zoran realized something terrifying. The universe was about to be changed forever, and they were powerless to stop it. For centuries, humanity had been teetering on the edge of extinction. Once a powerful force in the galaxy, humans had been pushed to the farthest corners of space, their influence fading with each passing year. The great alien empires had grown stronger, their technology far more advanced than anything humanity could muster. It seemed like the galaxy's fate had already been sealed, and humanity's place in it was all but forgotten. But deep in the heart of the galaxy, an ancient secret lay dormant, waiting for the right moment to awaken. It began with a single, unexplained event, a disturbance in a distant part of the galaxy. At first, it was barely noticeable. A few minor malfunctions on human colonies, some flickers in communication systems. But then the reports began to come in. Alien fleets, once thought to be invincible, began to experience strange, unexplainable failures. Their most advanced ships, their most powerful weapons, began to malfunction. Entire sectors of the galaxy fell into disarray. It wasn't long before the Federation, the largest coalition of alien species in the galaxy, noticed that something was wrong. They couldn't explain it, but they could feel it, a shift in power, a change in the very fabric of the galaxy. In the midst of this growing uncertainty, a lone human ship appeared. It was nothing like the old warships humanity had once used, nothing like the ancient, outdated vessels that had long been forgotten. This ship was new, sleek, and pulsed with an energy that seemed almost alive. It moved silently through space, unnoticed at first, but soon it caught the attention of the Federation. They scrambled to identify it, but all their attempts failed. No known human technology matched the ship's capabilities, and the Federation's most advanced scanners couldn't even get a clear reading on its energy signature. The Federation's military commanders, once confident in their superiority, were suddenly filled with dread. This mysterious ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. They had underestimated humanity for far too long, assuming that the human race had faded into irrelevance. But this new ship was a message, a sign that humanity had not only survived, but evolved into something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Commander Varric of the Quran Empire, one of the most feared leaders in the galaxy, was the first to act. He ordered his fleet to investigate. His empire, known for its brutal efficiency and overwhelming firepower, had conquered countless worlds. They had never faced an opponent like this. As his fleet approached the unknown human ship, the tension in the air was palpable. There was something deeply unsettling about it. The ship did not respond to hails, did not fire any weapons. It simply drifted, its energy pulsing in a rhythm that was almost hypnotic. Varric, ever the strategist, decided to take action. He sent a small fleet to engage the ship, hoping to force it into battle. But as soon as they got within range, everything changed. The human ship fired once, quickly, and with devastating precision. The beam it shot out wasn't like any weapon the Federation had ever seen. It didn't just destroy ships, it disassembled them on a molecular level. The ships that were hit vanished completely, leaving no trace behind. It wasn't a weapon of destruction, it was a weapon of annihilation, capable of erasing entire fleets in the blink of an eye. Panic spread through Varric's fleet as they realized they were up against something they could not defeat. The Federation's most powerful ships tried to return fire, but every blast seemed to vanish before it even made contact. The human ship was simply too fast, too powerful. It moved with a grace and speed that defied logic, dodging and weaving through the incoming fire like a shadow, leaving destruction in its wake. It was clear now this was no ordinary ship, and no ordinary weapon. As the battle raged on, Varric's fleet began to crumble. Ship after ship was torn apart by the human vessel's precision strikes. It wasn't just the physical destruction that terrified the Federation, it was the complete and utter lack of resistance. No warnings. No mercy. The Federation had always relied on overwhelming force to win their battles. But now, against this new threat, force meant nothing. The human ship was not just a weapon, it was a symbol of humanity's return to power. But even as the Federation's forces were scattered and destroyed, the human ship did not press the attack. It didn't follow up on its initial victory. It simply hovered in space, waiting. It was as if the ship had made its point, and now it was letting the galaxy's powers come to terms with what they had just witnessed. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the ship vanished into the vast emptiness of space, leaving behind nothing but the shattered remains of Varric's fleet. The Federation, in a state of shock, scrambled to regroup. But they knew they were no longer the galaxy's dominant force. The galaxy had changed, and humanity's return had tipped the scales in their favor. As news of the human ship spread, so did the fear. The message was clear. Humanity had not only survived, they had adapted, and they had a weapon capable of destroying anything that stood in their way. The galaxy's empires were left with a single, terrifying question: what would humanity do next? The Federation had always thought of humanity as a fading species, their technology outdated and their influence insignificant. But now they realized they had made a grave mistake. Humanity was no longer the weak, scattered race they had once been. They had evolved into something far more powerful, and now they had the edge. In the days that followed, reports came in from human colonies scattered across the galaxy. Strange, encrypted messages began to appear, messages that hinted at something greater, something more powerful than the human ship alone. There were whispers of new technology, of ancient knowledge rediscovered, of a force that could reshape the entire galaxy. The human race was preparing for something, and the galaxy's leaders didn't know what it was. But one thing was certain: the galaxy had been given a warning. Humanity's last hope was no longer a distant memory. It was a present reality, and it was stronger than anyone could have imagined. The fate of the galaxy now hung in the balance. Would the Federation and the alien empires be able to adapt to this new reality, or would they be swept aside by the unstoppable rise of humanity's power? The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity had returned, and nothing would ever be the same again.